And so when I think about this, specifically since we're talking dodgeball, when I think about the word dodge, a lot of us, we think about it from a defensive perspective, right? We think about it, especially with dodgeball, it's like, let me see what they're going to do. In order to survive, I have to avoid what somebody is throwing at me. In life, same thing. Sometimes that's how we treat life. We sit there and we're waiting to see, how can I avoid what's being thrown at me? God, I need you right now. It's crazy right now. Can you help me dodge these attacks of the enemy? But a lot of us, what happens is we're standing still and we're waiting to see what the enemy is going to do. Like, we're literally there. And so we're waiting, just like on dodgeball, waiting to see what our opponent is going to do. And you're going nowhere. See, when you think about it, nobody's winning or losing when you're just standing there. In that moment, for 20 seconds, however long, you're just holding that ball. Or in life, when you're staring at the enemy, it's like, what are you going to do? And the enemy's like, well, what are you going to do? Nobody's winning or losing. Nobody's advancing. Nobody's going anywhere. You're paralyzed in that moment. And it's a tough moment to be in. It's like almost like a deer in the headlights, right? A deer in the headlights, they had one goal. That was to get across the street. But all of a sudden, they see headlights, they freeze. That happens to a lot of us in our walk of life. We have one goal. God has given us something to do, or we have a victory, or we're trying to achieve something. And the moment adversity hits us, we're like a deer in the headlights. And we stop and we stand still. But what if we changed our perspective of dodging? Like, what if we made dodging an offensive, not like offensive to somebody, but an offensive maneuver? Like, we totally changed the perspective. I'm not trying to defend anymore. I'm actually using it to make to my goal. So we're going to go to Ruth chapter 4. Ruth chapter 4. And we're going to learn that Boaz in this story, and I told you guys through the week, go back and read Ruth. Go back and read it. It's such a great book. But Boaz had a different perspective. Boaz did some dodging. Like, he did some moving around. Boaz is excited. Like, I think that's the music Boaz played when he was trying to woo Ruth. Like, he cut that on, and Ruth laid at his feet, and like that music just started playing in the background. No, but Boaz did some dodging, right? He was on the offensive side. Like, once he set his mind straight, like he got to a certain point, he had a goal. I'm going to marry Ruth. Like, it was in his mind. After he saw how wonderful she was and all the things she did and how blessed, and he kept blessing her and how blessed she was, he was like, no, I'm going to marry her. And spoiler alert, he succeeded. We know that. We've been talking about that this week. But I want to start in Ruth chapter 4 and verse 9 and look at something that happened. It says this: Then Boaz said to the elders and to the crowd standing around, you are witnesses that today I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. And with the land I have acquired Ruth, the Moabite widow of Mahlon, to be my wife. This way she can have a son to carry on the family name of her dead husband and to inherit the family property here in his hometown. You are all witnesses today. And so here's the thing. This verse shows us that Boaz succeeded in his mission, in his goal. But along the way, there were some things between Boaz and Ruth. One of the things in between Boaz and Ruth was time. Like, these were two harvests for two festivals. There was a harvest of the barley and a harvest of the wheat. Barley takes a little bit less time to harvest or to grow, so they do that around, they believe it was around the May time frame, and then the wheat during June. And so all of this time, he had to wait, and they had to go back and forth, and whatever they did, with Ruth, how you doing? Here's some grain. And then Boaz was like, yo, take these 6 things of grain back to Naomi. This is for you. That's just how I feel like he said it. But it was just time through this courtship that they were going through. But not only time was there, Ruth was a Moabite woman. And so you have to understand, she was not from Judah. And so it looked weird to bring a foreigner in that never worshiped your God and say, I want to take her as my wife. And so that was some adversity he was going to have to go through as well. This was between him and Ruth. But then lastly, there was another family member in line for Ruth. Like, there was somebody in front of Boaz. Like, it was this guy, then Boaz. Like, he had dibs. So culturally, what would happen is somebody of the family of Elimelech, which was Naomi's husband, would be able to take everything Naomi possessed, and Ruth as well, being that Ruth was a widow of Naomi's son. And so here's the whole situation. There was another guy ahead of Boaz. And so this is all of the things that were in between Ruth and Boaz. And Boaz, he could have waited. But instead, Boaz began to operate like one of my favorite boxing styles. Like, there's this boxing style where some boxers who, if they have short reach, they can't punch as far, they try and get inside. And the whole point of them getting inside of somebody with a longer reach is so they can wear them down. And there's a lot of dodging. There's a lot of moving. There's a lot of attacking the body. And so what they're actually doing is they're attacking and trying to wear out the enemy by getting close and getting inside. They're rarely still, and they're just in there. That would just aggravate, just like the fly that just, or the gnat that just buzzes around your ear. That's what it's like when a boxer gets inside. But for us, it's the same thing. But what I want to do when I see how we can get inside the enemy's reach, I want to use Boaz as an example. We're going to look at how Boaz was able to take dodging and make it an offense maneuver. Like he was able to make it something that he can actually proceed to his goal with. And so the title of today's message is Getting Inside the Enemy's Reach. Getting inside the enemy's reach. Like, whoever wants to get inside your enemy's reach? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But if we're going to utilize the victory that we already have from Jesus, that he's given us, we're going to have to get inside the enemy's reach. There's always going to be some type of adversity in life. Like, there's no chance that it won't. When Paul wrote Timothy, he told him, he was like, look, you know me. You know my love. You know my affections for the people. Like, you know my faith. You know my patience. You also know my endurance because I've been through some things. In 2 Timothy, he said this in chapter 3 and verse 12. It says this, yes, and everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. So in other words, there's always going to be adversity. No matter what, you're always going to be going through something. So again, we're going to look at Boaz and see how did he take on this offensive approach with dodging. Like, he's going to get inside the enemy's reach and he's going to start attacking him. I love it. So where we're going to start at today, let's go back to Ruth chapter 2 and look at verse 20. We're going to start here. It says this, may the Lord bless him. Naomi told her daughter-in-law, he is showing his kindness to us as well as to your dead husband. That man is one of our closest relatives, one of our family redeemers. So there's a thing about this kinsman redeemer, and we've talked about it before. It's somebody being in relationship with a family member of a widow, and they can actually redeem the name of that widow's husband to allow their name to carry on through legacy. And so this is the opportunity. But here's the thing. Boaz was just one of the family redeemers. I told you there's another guy in line. He wasn't alone. But here's the key. Boaz had the opportunity to dodge defeat because he was in line for victory. In other words, some of us, we can't dodge the obstacle in front of us because we are in line for defeat instead of in line for victory. We're standing in the line for defeat. You're either going to be in one or the other instead of standing in the line for victory. And so point number one is this: know your line and stay on it. Know your line and stay on it. See, the reason I said know your line and not your lane is because in sports, and especially in boxing, lines are important. Like when I play football, if you take one step left or one step right on an angle, it can completely destroy you. And the further you're trying to go, this is a nerd moment. If you're off just by a little bit, once you get to your destination, you can be off by a lot. And so we have to watch this moment of knowing your line and staying on it. Here's the thing. You are either in line for victory or you're in line for defeat. And I don't know any boxer that has ever stood in line for defeat. Like that has signed up and say, you know what, I want to lose today. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to go and get pounded and lose. No. But for some of us, that's the decision we have to make in life. Either I'm in line and I understand that I have promises from God, or I'm worried about the probability. Either I'm in line and I understand that the devil is already defeated, or I'm asking myself, can he be defeated? There's one or the other. You can't be in both lines. And so we have to choose a line and stay in it. Do you believe that God has made you victorious, or do you believe that you're still fighting for victory? That's the question. But here's the interesting thing. Boaz was born into this relationship. Like, he was born into being a relative of Elimelech. Like, that was just part of his life. And so this put him in line for victory. In other words, to marry Ruth and being able to have the land that Naomi and Elimelech owned. But if Boaz was born into this role physically, we have to look at what happened to us spiritually. We have chosen to be a part of God's family spiritually. In other words, Jesus' victory over sin put us in line for victory, and it gave us victory. See, but here's the problem. It's very difficult to dodge defeat if you haven't chosen the victory that's been given. A lot of us are standing in the line in whatever moment of life. It could be your finances, it could be your relationships, and we're standing in the line of defeat saying, you know what, I just don't know if I can. God has already told you that you can. God has already given you the instructions of how to. He's already given you everything you need to defeat it. So step into the line of victory. But here's the thing. Crazy thing is that it gets better though. Not only has he put you in line for victory, the moment you choose Jesus is the moment you choose eternal victory. In other words, the moment you choose Jesus, you are no longer in line for victory. You are in victory. See, there's a difference. The moment you say, God, I choose you, what Jesus did 2,000 years ago immediately becomes access to you, and you're victorious. And you're not fighting for it anymore. Pastor Michelle will say this all the time. You're not fighting for victory. You're fighting from victory. You're not waiting. You're there. Like, some of us are in line in defeat because we don't realize that we've already been given victory. Let me tell you, you've been given the victory. And I'm not saying there won't be hard work. Like we just heard Paul say to Timothy, no, I've had to endure some things. I've had to go through some things, but it doesn't negate the fact that I'm victorious. It doesn't negate the fact that I've been given eternal life. And so this is what's happening. You have been given the opportunity to dodge defeat. All because Jesus already did it. Period. That's it. All right, so know your line. Are we all going to get in the line of victory and out of the line of defeat? Find those areas in your life where you're in the line of defeat and say, you know more. I already had the victory, so I'm going to just step in line, and I'm going to stay in it, okay? All right, so we're in Ruth chapter 2. So, that music played. Boaz and Ruth had their time together. They talked, and, oh, here's my work. And he's like, oh, here's some grain, all of that. And Naomi kind of coaches Ruth through this. This is her mother-in-law. And Boaz, he's interested. And so I want to jump to Ruth chapter 4 and verse 1 and see what happens here. Watch this. It says, Boaz went to the town gate and took a seat there. Just then, the family redeemer he had mentioned came by. So Boaz called out to him, come over here and sit down, friend. I want to talk to you. So they sat down together. So remember, I told you there was somebody else in line in front of Boaz. What if Boaz would have had the dodgeball mentality? Like, what if Boaz would have waited? What if he didn't do anything? What if he didn't pursue Ruth to be the kinsman redeemer of her family? See, sometimes the only way past the threat is to move towards the threat. Some of us never get past the threat, never get past the obstacle because we're too afraid to move towards it. But God has told us there's going to be some battles that we have to fight. He's with us. He's fighting those battles on our behalf, but we have a part in it as well, in our relationship with him. And so point number 2 is this. Know that you must keep moving forward. You have to keep moving forward. Because if I wait, I may achieve a passive victory. A passive victory. Here's what I call a passive victory. Passive victory comes from succeeding while in fear of failure. In other words, our victory is in the hand of circumstance. We just say, I hope it plays out. And sometimes it does. Sometimes it plays out in your favor. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes we're in a position to where, you're in a football game and 5,000 tips happen, and then somebody catches the ball and runs into the end zone and touchdown. Nobody understands how in the world that happens. Circumstances. But I guarantee you there's not one on that field that's not actually fighting for that victory. They're not in a passive victory mindset. See, the enemy, here's the problem with a passive mindset, victory mindset. The enemy will always tempt you in your circumstances to keep you paralyzed in the process. He's going to tempt you while you're there, while you're in that moment, because he wants you to get stuck. He wants you to be the deer in headlights so that you never get anywhere. He's happy if you just stay right there, because God has called you somewhere, and if you're staying right there, guess what? You're not getting there. You're not going there, and that's what he wants you to do. And so if we stay in this passive victory mindset, there could be a chance that you never make it to where God has called you to go. And I almost tell you, I don't want to guarantee it, but I'm pretty certain you won't make it to where you're trying to go if you just stay there, because the enemy then is going to wear you down and wear you out. And so if you find yourself in this position to where you have this passive victory, let's look at Boaz, because Boaz didn't wait. Boaz didn't say, you know what, let me see if this kinsman redeemer going to come talk to me and say something to me. No, Boaz went after her. He was in a position to where, I want to call it, he had an assertive victory. He had an assertive victory. In other words, his victory derived from the foundation that Jesus had already set him free. His victory derived from the fact that Jesus had already done for him, or God had already done for him what he needed to be done. That's the same place that ours need to derive from. We need to know that Jesus has already done it, and that's the foundation of our victory. In other words, it's like this. We have to begin taking ownership of the victory that God has given to us. When the enemy tempts you, you have to recognize that the process is only a part of the victory that has already belongs to you. In other words, when he tempts you, the process isn't the end. The process isn't the moment to where I can't make it through this. Oh, this is just another thing I have to get through. You look at it differently when you already realize you have victory. Now this process is hard. It's tough. I don't know if I can get through it. No, I can get through it. You completely change your perspective now, because I'm not passively waiting to see if I will win. I know that I already have win, and this just must be a step in the way of me getting to where God has called me to go. You don't have to wait. You already have it. The Holy Spirit said it to me like this. There's a difference between moving with victory in your possession and moving trying to possess victory. When I'm holding on to it, there's a difference than when I'm trying to search for it. Because if you're trying to search for something or look for something that you already have, now you're going by the wayside and you don't realize I already have it. It's mine. There's nothing else I have to do for it. But if I'm looking for it, the enemy can distract me. He'll be like, no, it's over there. Wait. No. It's in this Netflix series. Oh, wait. No. It's in this person. That's the one. Hang out with them. Do that. No. It's in this job. Lose yourself in it. And so now he's telling you, search for the victory over there. As long as he can keep you from realizing you already have it, search for the victory over there. And that's why some people, when they reach their goals, they still feel empty, because they're searching for empty victory. The victory that they need is in Christ Jesus. And so you have to know your game plan. Like moving forward, you have to move forward like it's yours. That means you have to pray like it's yours. Like you pray different when you know you've already got it. We know that God has already done it. You have to encourage yourself like you know you're victorious. You have to walk on that interview like you know you're victorious. And even if you don't get it, guess what? You're still victorious. You have to walk into that test like you're victorious. You have to walk into that conversation with your child like you're victorious. You have to walk into that conversation with your spouse, not like you're fighting them, but that you're victorious, that your marriage will succeed. You have to walk into it knowing you already have it. Your victory already belongs to you. And the devil can't take it away. It's impossible. If you have chosen Jesus as your Lord and Savior, there is nothing the devil can do. He can't take away your victory. Know the game plan. Get inside. Stay alert. Bob, weave. Wear the enemy out. I mean it, like just get in there. That's what your prayer life should look like. We in there, God. What we doing? Seriously. But in all honesty, a passive mindset or a passive victory mindset, it can paralyze you in the process. But an assertive victory mindset reminds you that there's victory through the process. You have to remember that. It's through the process. All right, so let's jump to Ruth. I'm making it. Let's jump to Ruth chapter 4, and let's go to verse 2. Let's go to the next verse. It says this, and we're going to read a bit all the way to verse 6. It says, Then Boaz called 10 leaders from the town and asked them to sit as witnesses. There had to be somebody there at that time. And Boaz said to the family redeemer, You know Naomi, who came back from Moab. She is selling the land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should speak to you about it so that you can redeem it if you wish. If you want the land, then buy it here in the presence of these witnesses. But if you don't want it, let me know right away, because I am next in line to redeem it after you. The man replied, All right, I'll redeem it. Boaz was like, Oh, yeah? That's how I feel like he did. It's like, watch this. Then Boaz told him, Of course, your purchase of the land from Naomi also requires that you marry Ruth, the Moabite woman. Or widow, excuse me. That way she can have children who will carry on her husband's name and keep the land in the family. Then the guy's like, oh, those are some different circumstances I wasn't expecting. I just wanted the land. I don't know about this Ruth character. So he's like, then I can't redeem it. The family redeemer replied, because this might endanger my own estate. You redeem the land, I can't do it. In other words, the guy was like, wait, it's not just the land? Like, I like the land, but I don't need another woman. Like, and not to say it that way, but some scholars believe that there's three reasons scholars say or assume that this has happened. One of the reasons is this, is they felt that he may have already been married. And so just bringing another woman in would have just brought complete contention into the household. Like, he's like, I want the land, but I don't want that. Smart man. Other things is it could have ruined his reputation. See, this was a Moabite woman coming into Judah, and so she wasn't of their descent. She came from worshiping other gods, and so it could have completely ruined. He was like, I don't want to do with that. Or scholars believe it could have been that she may have wanted too many children, and it would have broken up his inheritance too much to where then it would have been scattered amongst too many children. And so it was this moment to where we don't know why, but one of the things we know, he didn't want it anymore. See, either way, the land and Ruth weren't worthy or worth any of his time or any of that or any of his money. He said no. Here's the thing that I want you to get from this message. When someone else in line says no, you have to understand why you are ready to say yes. When somebody else in line for something that you want says no, you need to really understand why you're ready to say yes. And here's what I mean for that. Point number 3 is this. Know the value of your victory. Know the value of your victory. It's one thing to want to be victorious, but why? What's the value of what you're trying to be victorious for? See, Boaz knew firsthand the value of Ruth. Like, remember what we talked about. He had heard everything that Ruth had done for Naomi after her husband died and Orpah's husband died. She heard about all those things. Boaz firsthand saw all of the work that she did in the fields. She wasn't just the main picker of the barley and wheat. Like, she was picking up what other people had dropped after they picked it up. So, like, this is how hard she was working. He's seen all of this. He saw her on the threshing floor, which, you know, they had their little exchange with blankets and covering feet and uncovering feet, which has a purpose. But all of those things, he met her and he saw this and he continued to bless her. He was like, bless you, child. You're an amazing woman. Bless you. He knew the value of Ruth. And so he knew the value of the land and he knew the value of Ruth. And he was like, you know what? This is something I can get down with. This is something I want. This is something I love. This is my victory. This is what God has given me. See, when you're in line for victory and you're moving towards victory through opposition, you appreciate the victory that much more. See, it means something different to you that you had to work for it. That's why some people, you know, if they win the lottery, not all, when they win the lottery, they didn't appreciate it, they didn't work for it. That's what some people say in that mindset, is then they completely lose it because they've never been there before and they didn't have to work for it. I feel like if I just had the body that I wanted instantaneously, I would probably go right back to eating donuts and pizza and burgers and all the things I like to eat now because I didn't work for it. But I tell you what, when I go to the gym, sometimes, the Lord's still working on me, I don't want the burger. Sometimes. I'm getting there, y'all. to where it eventually, but all I'm saying is when you work for it, you appreciate it more. See, Jesus, he was in line for victory. He was moving towards victory on our behalf in the face of adversity. While he was walking down the road to Calvary, really all throughout his ministry, he was dealing with adversity. Somebody didn't want, or somebody didn't know, or who do you think you are, Jesus? And this is what Jesus is dealing with the entire time, but he kept pressing through because he knew the value of his victory. He knew how important each and every one of our lives was to his Father. And he said, even though I know how painful this is going to be, Father, can you let this cup pass from me? But nevertheless, your will be done. Why? Because he understood the value of the victory. You are worth that much to God. That's what I want you to know. Jesus understood your value. And so I need you to understand your value. God, he cherishes you. He loves you. He adores you. He wants to know you are absolutely priceless to him. So priceless that he would send his son Jesus. Even in the face of adversity, Jesus knew the value. But see, the unfortunate truth is this. Everybody won't value what God has promised you. Everybody will not value what God has promised you. He didn't value it. Whoever this guy's name was, whoever he was, he didn't value what God had sent for Boaz. And guess what? It's all right. It's okay. The question is, will you value it? Will you understand and know the value of that victory to where you will not have a passive mindset, but you will have an assertive victory mindset and says, it's already mine, and so let me go ahead and step in place. I knew you weren't going to get that, buddy. I knew you were going to say no because God had already lined this up for me. And so when you value victory, the process is bigger than the moment, and it sustains the momentum through adversity. When you value that victory, it's not just a moment anymore. It's what helps carries you through the adversity. It's sometimes like how people get on the streak, like they get happy. They're like, you know what? I won a game. I can win it. And now it's giving me momentum to get back out there and practice and work harder for the next one. And then for the next one. And it becomes like this big rock that developed from a little pebble of just understanding that value of victory. And it becomes momentum into the next challenge, into the next thing you do. And so you have to know that God has called you to be victorious. He's actually called you to move forward. Get inside of the enemy's reach. Bob and weave. Whatever you have to do. You know, maybe you need, in your prayer life, you may need to visualize. Just get there and just start. God, I thank you. You never know. Something happens when you link what's going on in your brain with your body. You begin to feel like you're dodging and you're getting inside. You say, enemy, I got you. I made it through this week. Enemy, I know you tried to get me with that trick, but I'm coming at you. Boom. I'm not waiting. I'm coming for you because God has already told me I'm victorious. See, the victory is yours. He values you. But you have to understand there's kingdom impacts. There's other people's lives who are depending on your victory. You valuing it. You moving in and getting inside of the enemy's reach.